pay for their services, for snow plowing, for police, and for everything else. The only thing they do on their own is they do some maintenance of a couple of the ponds out there. Other than that, we maintain the park and they pay us for it. Now, I think there's only about 15 bills that go out and 9 properties, 9 property owners. So there isn't that many, but we collect that amount of money. We collected a little bit more because we found some issues. And what we'd like to get is we'd like to be able to get back to the $1,050,000, which is what the ordinance requires. Right now, we're estimating that to be $1,010,000. And what I'd like it if we could do is to pass this budget the way it is. What we did find, and again, I did find that the way this budget is budgeted, reported on a monthly basis is very difficult for the departments to determine what they're responsible for and what they're not. How it's done now is both Fred and Max are responsible for a single line item. So there's two different departments, 2 different types of operation that go into these line items. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to pass this the way it is. We're going to get together and we're going to put together a budget that separates both of them so they're both responsible for their budgets and their budgets only. And then we'll come back and ask you for an amendment to that special service area fund. But right now we're asking you to pass it like this so we can pass it by the 30th. Not unusual to do an amendment. We do them all the time. But it's just something we picked up a little bit later while we were working on this. And we just want to make sure that everything calculates properly, and I think it managed their budgets that way. We'll have to report it in a little bit different manner, but it'll still meet the requirements of the ordinance. The ordinance requires us to show it in some fashion when we bill it in a certain manner. That's the way it was showed, that's the way it's been managed. And we have to show it that way when we bill, but don't have to budget that way, don't have to audit that way, don't have to do the monthly reports that way. It'll be a lot easier and a lot better for the departments to manage if we work that out differently to where they're responsible for their own line items. Any questions on SSA? Okay. If we could move to the general fund, that's on page 2. I'm going to cover the general fund revenue. I'd like to cover the administration budget. And in the general fund budget, what you'll note is a couple of big variations. You can see that our utility tax, there's been some big changes in. And in the category of taxes, it's the third one from the bottom. That's going to be about $600,000. And again, that's because we were able to work things out with Elwood Energy. Elwood Energy does have to pay us utility taxes. Had some catch up that they had to do. And that's a big revenue stream for us. The other revenues there, property taxes are what we've levied in December, and then the state shared revenues are local use, income tax, and those are set again per capita, a lot like the MFT is. They collect those through the whole state, distribute them per capita. Our homeowner sales tax and regular sales tax are items that seem to be holding their own, doing very well. PPRT is something that's distributed by the state also, and road and bridge is an item that's set at property tax levy time by the townships. And we get a portion of what they tax of the township roads that are in the village that we maintain. So on the tax side, we're pretty solid. You can see that went from a budget in previous years of 1.1 to 1.4. Now the other issues in the license side, that you'll see a little bit of a decrease in. I think we got a little ambitious with the police fines. They're estimated to collect about $200,000, trying to get that up to about $3 million. And other than that, the revenue items are pretty static in the licenses and permit side. Interest income, I made a little bit better estimate because we're going to be rolling over CDs a little bit differently. And right now we held a lot of cash in money market accounts or in checking accounts. We're able to move that out now because we have a better handle on what our capital is. So we'll probably see a substantial increase in the interest earning there. And we do have about $1.2 million that we'll be ending the year with in fund balance. And I don't show that in our budget there, but the general fund is going to start the year at about 1.2. It'll end at 1.297, surplus of almost $100,000. And whenever we go for a bond rating, what credit rating agencies look for is they look for a fund balance of 25% of what your annual expenses are. We're at 67%. So we exceed that, and then we meet almost all of the requirements. And I think we're one of the smallest towns that actually gets that high of a bond rating. We're an A+ bond rating. And I think we'll only continue to do better. If we look at the lease agreement, you will see that one revenue stream is missing, and we used to collect lease tax from Nextel on top of our water tower. And that's the agreement that Max has been working on, where we're taking over that building next to the water tower. I know Max is trying hard, and we are too, to try and get another contractor up there, but there may be one in another spot in the village, and probably by the water tower, I think, right, Max?
Yeah, I just met this morning with them actually. The site is directly north of the water treatment plant building, which is basically going to be located on the southwest side of the water treatment plant property.
So what we do is we allow space for vendors for cell phone coverage, essentially is what it is, and then they pay us per user. And that's probably going to be about $20,000 or $25,000 added to this budget, but it's not worth in here now because we don't have anything squared up with them, and we may by the end of the fiscal year. So we'll get an additional amount of revenue there, and we'll probably get better reception too, right? If it's who's it? We don't know. We'll talk about who's it with. Who's it with? Verizon. Okay, good. The other item is in miscellaneous revenue. You can see we have that item. We take a portion of the proceeds of the TIF money every year, and we have to request that from the paying agent of Elwood Bank, and that's a distribution. It's called Center Point Administrative Fee, but actually it's an administrative fee out of the TIF fund that's allowed by statute. It increases 2% a year, and we'll have that for the life of the TIF district, so we'll get that for another 10 years. Miscellaneous revenue is odds and ends that we get throughout the year. You can see we got about $26,000 a year before, but not likely to get that much from year to year. So again, we're looking at a pretty stable revenue stream for the village. As long as we keep a good handle on our expenses, we'll be doing very well. Have a good bond rating, and a lot of that depends on your general fund operations. One other thing that I did is I moved some of the capital requests that the departments made into the capital funds. And what we'll be doing again is we'll be actually establishing a vehicle equipment replacement fund. And we'll come back to you with an amendment for that. So we do have, in our capital fund, we have a lot of different buckets that we've gotten authorization from. And we've been doing a lot of capital throughout the village, but we're looking at actually establishing a vehicle replacement fund so we have a good handle